This is literally a baby tilt, and these are the zones that I bagged now. I'm at the rec center gonna be making up 6 random holes to show you how these discs complement each other and how overstable and ridiculous the AGL Baobab is. I can never say that. Now, I recently signed with AGL discs, and the Baobab is one of their most popular overstable putters. The BAB comes in at 4013. Honestly, an absolute unit. Today, I'm going to compare it to your more typical overstable approach disc. So I have an ESP zone and a Jawbreaker zone just to show you the difference and how insane this thing truly is. We're going to start off pretty simple here. We got about 180 feet downhill. Going to start off with some forehands and see if we can put all 3 of these close to the basket and get our birdies. Holy moly. It literally flies like a baby tilt. As you see, that is still stable. That is stable enough to get the job done. And here is my really beat in Jawbreaker zone, which is one of my straightest zones that I bag. It even turns just slightly to an absolute park job. That one is gonna be the easiest to get the distance on all of these holes. In the hand, the BAB feels like an absolute unit. It's got a pretty soft, flimsy flight plate, but the rim is so thick and it has a bit of a divot down to its flight plate, which makes it feel a little bit unique. It's almost like a thumb track, but not really. The real question is, can it give me some birdies? Yes. ESP zone didn't land far from it. Oh my gosh, that was embarrassing. And the furthest of them all is of course going to be the Jawbreaker zone. Barely snuck those last 2 in, but they're in for their birdies. Hole 2 is gonna be at the same basket, but this time throwing in between these 2 trees, and I have to throw backhand. I have yet to throw the BAB on a backhand. Oh my goodness. This is a whopping like 180 feet, if that, and I can hardly get that thing there. Literally, here's a tilt. Those are probably the same exact distances. The tilt is just a higher speed, so it gets the ground play. Oh, go in. Whoo-wee, right under the basket. As you can see, the zone stays on the hyzer angle and pushes, whereas the Baobab, it has no glide, so it literally just crashes to the ground. And here is the Jawbreaker zone. That one I have to push on hyzer in order for it to actually get over there and act overstable. Sometimes I do use the Jawbreaker zone as my throwing putter. Just feels good in my hand, and the Jawbreaker plastic is just awesome. Lucky enough, it still is pretty close where I could get my birdie. On to hole 3, and we're gonna test if this thing can stay on ante. Sometimes when a disc doesn't have a whole lot of glide, that it actually just kind of crashes instead of fighting out of the ante. This is a shorty, but I'm gonna have to go right of these 2 big trees and see if we can get to the basket. This disc seems like something that you're gonna use a lot while you're scrambling in the woods. Immediately out of it. That is honestly just incredible. Holds a little bit longer and still comes out of it. And here is the Jawbreaker zone where you're really gonna see the clear-cut difference between all 3 of these disc stability. The Jawbreaker is allowed to hold turn and push over to the left, but it still lands flat. And I apologize, I think those trees got in the way of that shot. That's the main reason that I bagged the Jawbreaker zone. It gives me the zone feel, but it's gonna be a lot straighter. I'm gonna be able to throw it further, and it's gonna hold some forehand ante lines and backhand. So the ESP zone and the Baobab kind of landed in similar positions here. Woo! That was my first worry about the Baobab not getting a birdie. The ESP zone, very similar putt here. And able to sneak it in the corner pocket. Let's go. And of course, the Jawbreaker is on the other side of the basket. All right, hole 4, I have to add a little bit of distance. So we are gonna go probably a little slight backhand turnover as hard as we can and see if we could get the BAB to the basket. This is definitely where the zone should excel here, being able to hold turnover for a little bit longer, and overall you can just throw them further. But we are not gonna give up on the BAB. Oh my gosh, that is insane. I set the Bab up for failure on this hole, thinking that I could possibly force it over there. It doesn't, you can't force it. Oh. Oopsies. So much better to throw on those shots. One thing about throwing overstable shots like this for me is since I'm trying so hard, I kind of miss my line. That's what kind of happened with the ESP zone. But with something a little bit more smoother coming out of the hand that's able to hold the turnover, you're able to hit your lines a little bit better. At least I am. Here it's time to make a big putt for the ESP zone. Come on. Oh, come on, get it. Oh. Why? Why me? A beautiful opportunity for the Jawbreaker zone. I'm just gonna go ahead and putt with it. Hopefully I make it. And it goes up 1 on hole 4. All right, hole 5 is gonna be a nice little tunnel shot. This is probably only about 160 feet, I would say. I'd have to imagine that this should be a pretty typical shot for any of these discs. I would probably go with my more straighter one in the Jawbreaker zone, but I think all of these can get the job done. See, the Baobab, I really just have to push low, and it's gotta kind of be on Annie to actually get there. Well, that's not how you do it. That's a little bit better with the ESP zone. Kind of turns a little bit and gets to the basket. That's really the disc for this shot, and I knew that, but I wanted to see if I could get the Baobab there. Honestly, I just threw it terrible. Now I have to make a miraculous putt, which I have yet to do today. Too much turn. And the Jawbreaker is absolutely parked. All right, this is gonna be the last hole of the video, and one where I think all 3 of these discs are gonna do great at. A simple forehand hyzer. Really where the Bab comes in handy. If you want anything to really just hyzer and get to the ground quickly, the Bab it might be the disc to get if you don't need a lot of distance. It's got a little bit more glide, but it still gets to the ground pretty quickly. Flips up a little bit, and it's gonna be perfectly placed under the basket. And there you have it for the overstable approach disc. The Jawbreaker zone, which really isn't all that overstable, is gonna be crowned the winner of the overall challenge. That being said, I learned a whole lot about this Baobab from AGL. This thing is genuinely one of a kind. In my bag, this is gonna be more of a utility disc and something that gets me out of trouble when I need it. It is crazy overstable, and it really is the putter of tilts. No glide on this bad boy, and it just wants to get to the ground as quickly as possible. You could really tell when it struggled, it was because it was a straight tunnel shot or something that actually had to hold Annie. This disc is not gonna do either of those things. In fact, it's just gonna hyzer very, very hard. If I need to go up over something that isn't very far, I think the AGL Baobab is gonna be the disc for me. This thing is incredible. If you haven't checked one of these out and it looks entertaining, it is pretty entertaining to throw. Go over to aglDisc.com, use code ChaseandChains in all caps, and I'll get you a little bit of a discount and will help support me. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we will see you all on the next one.